Hey mamas, welcome to Breastfeeding Relief with Bethany. We share incredible stories, tips, and breastfeeding ideas to help on your journey. I'm your host, Bethany Laverne, a lactation consultant and speech therapist who helps mamas with breastfeeding. Not all breastfeeding stories are the same, and we dive into those topics. Welcome to another episode of Breastfeeding Relief with Bethany. Today I have Patricia from Motherhood in ADHD. Welcome to the podcast today. We are so excited to have you.
Thanks so much for having me. I can't wait.
Yes. So let's go ahead and jump in. Tell us about yourself and how you started working specifically with moms with ADHD.
That was not my idea, I'll be honest. I, I am a teacher by trade. I taught middle school for many years. And so I just assumed that after I left teaching when I had my oldest, that I would end up getting back somewhere in related with kids, because I love working with kids. I know a lot of people think I'm crazy for loving middle school, but I love middle schoolers. They're hilarious. And as it would have, I just struggled so much after I had my first son and realizing how much my ADHD affected everything. And I was doing pretty great before. I had all my systems in place and life was going fairly well. And then you introduce this human who has absolute disregard for any of your plans or structure. It all fell apart. And I was up at 3 a.m. Googling, how do you be a good mom with ADHD? And I couldn't find hardly anything at the time. And so fast forward, when my youngest was about 1, I am a spiritual faith person. I have a really strong relationship with God. And he clearly told me, Patricia, I need you to start a podcast for moms with ADHD. And I was like, no, thanks, God, not interested. But I finally listened, and it turns out it was a good idea. And that is how I very unwillingly ended up here.
Yeah. No, I think that's good. I mean, I felt the Lord put on my heart as well. You need to be working with moms, especially moms that their babies have tongue tie, because I felt the same way. Our second son was tongue tied. I knew something was wrong. I felt like I wasn't being heard. And I just kept going down this rabbit hole and getting more certifications to figure out what was wrong with my son. Mm-hmm. And I was like, there is no reason that our son should be drooling constantly. And as a 2-year-old, I'm changing his shirt 5 times a day because his shirt is soaked. He shouldn't be delayed with walking, So I agree. It's kind of funny what the Lord puts on our hearts sometimes.
I'm an introvert. I spent my whole life covering up all the struggles that I had to keep up with my ADHD. And so to come forward and be listen, internet, here's all my problems, let's discuss. Really was a step of faith. It was not at all what I planned to do. So
yeah, no,
it worked out. Scary journey, for sure.
Absolutely. Life's a scary journey. So
it is.
You brought up such a good topic that I feel we sweep under the rug, we don't talk about. And as first-time moms, lots of us deal with postpartum depression. I definitely did. I didn't realize I had it, but the more I look back, I'm like, ooh, yikes, that was a really scary time for me. I was a therapist in nursing homes doing management. I ran 7 nursing homes, had 60 therapists under me that I was running. Then I have our first son, and I felt like the phone wasn't ringing. No one was calling me. I wasn't needed. My husband went back to work after a week, and I was just sitting there crying constantly because I was like, nobody needs me, even though this baby needed me. That was our plan. We wanted kids, right? And so I feel like a lot of moms really struggle with this, specifically with the dysphoric milk ejection reflexes. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's short. It's called D-MER. And what happens is right around when your milk lets down, you have this the best way to describe it is this awful feeling. And it's different for everybody. Some people, it's more sadness. Some people, it's a feeling in the pit of their stomach. For some people, it's more suicidal thoughts or anger. There's a pretty wide range of of like reactions that come through, but it's like a drastic change when your milk lets down in the way that you feel. And I had no idea this was a thing and had been dealing with it for months. I think I didn't actually learn about it until um my son was probably like 6 or 7 months old. Like it was a long time. And to know that like there's not something wrong with me. Like this is a physical change. It has to do with your hormones where like they don't fully understand it. It's really not been researched a whole lot, but they believe it has to do with like when your milk lets down, you get a lot of oxytocin, which is something that suppresses dopamine, which regulates your mood. And so they think this is all connected. And so we know like it's a physical thing. It is not a like choice that you're making. It's not like you could just happy your way through this. Like it's a physical change in your body that is moving your mood around. And to know that it's not you, there's not something wrong with you, makes it a lot easier to deal with, even though you can't do anything about it in terms of like you can't stop it from happening, but you can then deal with it and knowing it's not like a you thing. Because where I think a lot of moms struggle, just as like a whole, but then specifically was this like when you don't know that you're like this is a thing that happens, it's not just you, you start to think that it's your problem and there's something wrong with you and you're broken, and we go down this rabbit hole of like what's wrong with me. But when we can say like, oh, this is a physical change that happens in our body and it happens to affect me in this way, then you can start to find the solutions for it. And you're not spending all your energy beating yourself up. Instead, you're putting that energy towards, okay, what do I do about this? So that's kind of a long-winded answer, but that's the gist of it. So
No, that's perfect. And, I feel like as moms, we sit and struggle in loneliness and sadness by ourselves and we don't reach out for help, right? And so, mamas, I want to let you know that I'm here for you. Patricia's here for you. Specifically, I have where I run for 30 days. You can come work with me one-on-one through an app. You can send me all of your questions, all your emotions, all your sadness. And especially, I feel I get the most response between 2 and 4 a.m. because we feel nobody else is awake. We can't call and talk to anyone. But you aren't alone. And so please send me those messages at 2 and 4 a.m. I want to encourage you. I want to help you. I want to listen to you. I want you to feel supported, not only as a mom on this new journey, but also with your breastfeeding questions and support, all that kind of stuff. Patricia, I know you help moms and do some meetups. Can you talk about that? Like how you also support mamas during this period?
yeah, so we have a community called Successful Mama Meetups, and it's all moms who have ADHD. So we're in it together and talking about that hard stuff. And it is hard. Like when you think about here you are at 3 a.m., you're up with this baby, you're half asleep, and then you are like hit with all this emotion, and you do feel like you're the only person awake. And perhaps you are staring at your partner, shooting them daggers as they peacefully sleep while you are there awake. And now your hormones are, I mean, they're already a mess in the first place, but like if you do happen to have D-MER, like my stomach would just drop and it would churn. And I was just like awful. And like, yes, it is a quick reaction. Like it is something that like moves on within like a couple minutes. But the problem is when you're sitting up at 3 a.m., do you move on from things in 2 to 3 minutes? No, you're like sitting there stewing on it and frustrated and feeling awful. And it's like, you don't have to stay there. You can find communities like either one of ours where like, here are other people who get what it's like to be that way. There's other people saying, yes, I've dealt with that. Yes, like I hear you. Yes, my house is a disaster. Yes, my car looks like McDonald's trash can overflowed in it. Like when you have other people there to say like, I get it, it's happened to me, or even if not that exact same thing happened to me, but like something similar, and there's like not a judgment there. There's so much freedom in starting to heal because again, you're not taking ownership of all that problem. It's now a shared burden. And then you get this crowdsourcing effect of like, hey, I'm really struggling with this. Can anybody got ideas on this? And the other moms can start to chime in and support you. And it's this really beautiful thing that we don't have enough of
Mm-hmm.
in the community of moms. So like to have a place where you can go meet, and like I'm not exactly sure how your community is set up. Like for me, we've got designated times where we meet together on Zoom, but we also have a Slack community. So like you can be in there and like message each other like anytime, but we also have like specific times where you can see somebody who like makes complete sentences most of the time and like hear that you're not the only one. It's such a healing part of our journeys. And I think that is a really big struggle for moms, is not knowing that you have that space that is safe for you to say, like, I'm not okay, I need help. And knowing that you're not going to get judged for that or looked down upon, or somebody's going to call CPS on you. Like that safety is really important.
Mm-hmm. I agree 100%. I know I went to a lactation group in my community when I first had our son. And I remember I missed the first one I had decided to go to because I had slept in, and I didn't realize it was like a come and a go. And I remember just crying the rest of the day. Like, I have to wait another week because I slept in, but of course my baby slept, so I should be happy. But I just remember being like so upset. But once I finally got into that community, yes, it's a breastfeeding community, right? And so it's not for all moms, even though you're welcome if you are, pumping, even if you're doing formula, you're welcome, but you might not feel welcome. So that's why I love your community, right? But it's so nice to be like, I'm going crazy. My baby's not sleeping. I remember someone being like, honey, it's okay. It's called the 4-month sleep regression. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. I thought I was dying, right? So, it is so nice to have, and especially if you have a good facilitator like Patricia, it's not just like maybe a Facebook message board and anyone can say anything they want. It's a safe space. We're gonna be there with you. We're gonna walk there with you. We're gonna give you good advice, researched advice from us, not just hanging out on Facebook and anyone says anything they want. So
yeah. And a lot of people have a lot of opinions about parenting. So you never get
so many. So also, as a first-time mom, we get worried about, I remember specifically, is my son getting enough sleep? Is he getting enough to eat? I know I had the app and I'm like constantly clicking it, like when I started breastfeeding, when I stopped, when he started sleeping, how many naps he was taking, right? I had all the apps. I clicked all the things. With our second one, I didn't have enough time. I stopped clicking. We can't track everything when you got, I had a 17-month running around, a newborn, COVID started, and we sold our house. So I did not have time for apps. But moms, 10% of us will suffer from postpartum depression. And so that's also kind of goes with that D-MER, a little bit different, right? But when do we finally need to say, I'm not just being a little worried, I really need to go get some help?
I think like it's hard to know. And I'll be honest, so like you said, like you're like, I didn't really realize I was struggling that much. And I also did not realize I was struggling that much. Thankfully, while I was pregnant, I had a friend who said, hey, I really struggled with postpartum anxiety, and this is what it looked like. So I had something to like latch onto, of like a real experience of what that was like, and knowing that it was a thing that actually existed. But I think it was probably about 6 weeks before I realized that I was really struggling. And it was probably about 8 weeks till I asked for help. And even in the grand scheme of things, like that's still a short amount of time when you think about postpartum depression and anxiety can last 2-3 years. It's not a, fourth trimester isolated incident. So part one is like, you probably aren't going to know for a while because everything is so hard. All the hormones are everywhere. And that's where like having those people to support you really matters. So like when I think back to how much I struggled with my first, when it came to my second, like I was already seeing my psychiatrist and saying like, what do I need to do to prepare? Like we started titrating antidepressants at the very end of my pregnancy so that I hopefully wouldn't deal with it. And I didn't have issues with my second. So like there's like hope to know that have to you don't have to have that every time. Like you can ask for help and it can be better. It may not. I won't promise you, unicorns and rainbows, but like there is hope there to know like who are your support systems that can keep an eye out. Like I think honestly, my husband was like, I think something's not right here. Like, and of course he's like very tentative, like, I don't want you to cry anymore, but I also think we need to talk about this. So like that's part one, is having that support system there. Like literally you just need one person who you can talk to about it. But if this is you in the moment and you don't have that, which is a very big reality for a lot of us, when you hit that point where you realize more often than not, like that's usually like my catchphrase for a lot of things. My gauge is more often than not. Like if we're trying to make a new habit, our goal is more often than not. If we want to know if like this is a problem, is it a problem more often than not? Is it more often are your thoughts spinning and out of control and you're anxious and you're panicking about what if, oh my goodness, is my baby not breathing? Like if you're more often than not on that side of things than enjoying it, that's when we know like, hey, this is something we want to look into. Like basically like once you hit 51%, we want to do something about it. Because as long as we're like, as a mom, especially as a new mom, everything is hard. Everything is different. All the hormones are terrible. Nobody's sleeping. Like it's a hot mess. But as soon as we realize this is more disastrous, more hard, more anytime more than it's not, that's when it's time to ask for help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's so lovely. And I know for me, I felt like it was hard to ask for help specifically because I was now a stay-at-home mom. So what else was I supposed to be doing? I didn't have to clock in and out of work. I didn't have anywhere to be but that house. And so I felt bad asking for help, even though I definitely needed more sleep. But I felt bad if the dishes weren't done, the dinner wasn't done on time when my husband entered the house. I just felt awful. Like I didn't feel like I could ask for help. And that's more than likely just my personality. But I know other moms are listening to this, and I bet they feel the exact same way, that you just don't feel like you can ask for help. But one of the best things, so with our second son, I did ask for more help. But specifically from my husband, because I wanted more sleep. He's a night owl. I am not a night owl. I do not care for nighttime. And of course, like us mamas, we go into that witching hour starting at 4:00. Yeah. From 4 to 7, we always put our kids down at 7. Yeah. And the biggest piece of advice I give breastfeeding moms is pump once a day, usually in the morning, because that's when you have the most milk. Is, if your baby has slept for 4 to 6 hours at night and then you breastfeed in the morning, pump. And then I would have fresh breast milk for him to give in a bottle at night. So we would lay our son down that, was 17 months. And then I would go to bed as well, which I, kind of hated because that was my time with my husband. But I was like, I have to sleep if I'm going to be a good person, if he's up every 2 hours. And so please let me sleep. You give the pump bottle and let me get a good 4 to 6 hours stretch of sleep. And he would let me, he wouldn't wake me up to tell me that everyone was in bed, but he would put the monitor next to my bed. So if I woke up, I would either hear it or I'd wake up and see the monitor to know our baby was in bed.
Yeah. And I think it's really important that you set the priorities of like, we are not going to be able to do all the things. Yes, we wish we could, but we're not going to be able to keep up with house and meals and like home cooked goodness and like sleeping and brilliant activities for your toddler who is shaping their mind and like we can't do it all. So when you sit down either by yourself or with your partner and say, what's the most important thing here? Like sleep is one of them. And we did the same thing where I would go to bed after the last feed and I would sleep through the next feed. My husband would do that with the bottle. And then I would get up for the second one. And that whoa, getting 4 hours of sleep straight or 6 hours of sleep straight is like a game changer, especially for people who have ADHD. We really struggle when we don't have our general health taken care of, like the baselines of like sleep, somewhat nutritious food, like just the baseline, we struggle way more, and our symptoms start to like really get out of control if we don't have those baselines covered. So when you can look at like what's our, like, we're not looking for thriving. Our baseline of survival is like, how much sleep do we need? How can we get food in us that's not, you know, 3 smushed goldfish crackers and like a sandwich crust? Like, how do we take this basic thing and get there? We don't have to do the full spa treatment. Can we at least just splash some water on our face and brush our teeth? Like, where's the bare minimum for you? Because everybody's different. Some of us be like, you know what, if I didn't brush my teeth today, I'll live. And other people are like, if I don't brush my teeth 3 times a day, I feel like a mess. You know, it just depends on what you need, but where's that bare minimum that you and your partner can both be happy if it's the two of you, or that you can function as a single mom and like get by, because we cannot do all the things. It is literally not possible.
Exactly. But I do feel like Instagram/society tells us we have to do all the things. We just carry that burden. Like, even I have kids in preschool now, and sometimes I feel like I carry that burden on my back. Why? Because I put it on my back, not because it was placed upon me, but because I have put it there. And sometimes when I start to get overwhelmed, I really think about like, okay, I just need to ask for help. And again, that's my personality. I have trouble asking for help. Here, honesty time, everyone. So ask for help. So even like, I cook, I would say 90% of the meals in this house, but I hate doing dishes. And so I tell my husband, please do the dishes. So to this day, it started when our son was young. He does the dishes. So even if he decides not to do the dishes tonight and they're piling up, I don't get upset about it, because it's not what I'm doing. I don't say anything about it. I don't care that they aren't done. I know it's not my responsibility and I don't care, but I know they will be done. So it's ask for help and stuff that maybe you don't like to do, or you know your partner enjoys, or whatever. Ask for help. And even, let me tell you, old ladies love to come and rock babies. And they, you know, even like some of our neighbors, like their kids were like in high school, and they were more than happy to come over and be like, can you just hold the baby? I would like to do X, Y, or Z, or take a shower, or take a nap. And they were more than happy to do that. I felt awful asking, but they're like, oh, I will definitely come over and hold your baby while you take a shower. That is completely fine with me today.
Yep. Actually, I'd say one of the best gifts I got is at the time, one of my friends who also, she had, her kids were all like over the age of 10 at that point. And she was in school, she was back to school. So she would come over once a week and she would study in my living room. And she was like, my kids are at school, I got to study. I will sit here and study. And as an experienced mom, she was like, I can rock a baby and study, because she had slept.
Right.
Because she was already getting her basic needs. She's like, it's not a big deal to me. And like, I can look back now and see that, like, yeah, my kids are now 6 and 9. If you wanted to hand me a baby for a couple hours, I could rock a baby and like study. I could rock a baby and like write emails. Like, I can do that because I have experience and I sleep. So like, that gift that she gave me, where she would like just come and like keep an eye out for him. And half the time he slept the whole time she was there. But the fact that I could turn my brain off and not feel the responsibility weighing on me, is that like, I think we really don't give enough credit for ourselves as mom, is that like constant, like low level of alert that we have to keep as a mom. It takes a lot of energy. We don't realize how much it takes, but it's always there. You always have the ear out. Is someone crying? You know, what time is it? When is snack time? When is meal time? Do we need to get the kids in bed? Do I have dinner ready? All those things just low level run all the time, and they're big energy suck on our day. So if you can hand someone your baby for 3 hours while they're doing their thing that they would have been doing anyway, and you can nap, or you can get something done, or you can get in the shower, and to know that you don't have to worry at that point, that this other person is perfectly capable of handling your baby for 3 hours, like, that is a beautiful gift. And like you said, like when your kids get to high school, you're excited to like jump in. Well, not always. I mean, some people are just not. I'm not a baby person per se, but like, there's a lot of baby people out there. They're happy to come in and snuggle a baby for a few hours because their babies are like looking at them like, they're 13 and smelly and, smell like Doritos and gym socks. And like, they're happy to do that for you. But we have to ask, like you said, we have to ask.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love even where you said, you can turn your brain off. And so I started showering at night because my husband was home. And so I knew even if I heard the baby cry or the phantom cries that I heard so much of, I didn't have to worry about it. And I didn't have to jump out of the shower mid shampoo. And so anyways, it's good to be able to give that responsibility. And I love how you're like, just the baseline, is it is all the time. It's constant. It's something I feel like we don't think about, but I do feel like you're always like looking at the clock, like what time is it? Or is it snack time? Do we need to be somewhere? Even like they talk about that mom math. We have to be at the park at noon. Let's start backing it up, to like 10 a.m. We need to, everyone, let's start getting ready. I need to pack the snack. I need to get everyone diaper changed. I need to go to the bathroom. It's all the things, which I think is just so hard that I feel like men sometimes don't understand like how our brains work on how we need to get somewhere. And sometimes it's like, I feel like you just got up and got in the car. That's all you did.
Because they can.
Yeah.
Because we already did all the other things that were required. And that, like, I mean, honestly, that's a whole nother can of worms, but it is really important that we have those honest conversations with our partners. And if you don't feel comfortable, like having a third party help you, like I will say that like my husband and I have done counseling, and having an outside party to just listen and be the objective voice of reason is really helpful on both of our sides, to know like just because the other person feels this way and you don't get it doesn't mean it's not valid. And like hearing that from somebody else is extremely important for both sides. And like I always try to go back to, even when my husband and I are butting heads, like if this truly is the person that I'm spending the rest of my life with, and this is my life partner, like we both want the best. We both want like for the whole family to be successful. So when you come at it from that position of like, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you just said that really dumb thing and I want to punch you in the face. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you meant well, like underneath of that. And that you're like, the same as like when we look at our kids' behavior, it's communicating something to us. Our partners are also communicating something to us. We may not appreciate their method of communication, but they're communicating something to us. And like, what's that underlying need that they're communicating? Is it that they really wish they had more time with you? Is it that they're like frustrated from all their stressors and it's being taken out on you? Like when you can start to dig in and look at, like, we're all trying to do our best. We all want our family to be successful, like assuming that you're in a healthy relationship. Like, how do we work at this together? From that angle, it does become a lot easier to find solutions when everybody's trying to get to the same place.
Yeah, I love that advice so much. That's so good. Because it also makes me think about, you and your husband, your partner, you're right. We do all want the same thing, but you also have to remember, I try to always keep this also in the back of my mind, is one day those kids are going to be out of my house. And so I still want my husband here and for us to have date night and things in common and still be together after the kids leave. It just makes me so sad, like how many friends I have that after the kids go to college, they're looking at divorce. Or, we have a friend right now that he was like, well, after the kid graduates, I'm pretty sure I'm gone. And you're just like, oh, that just makes me so sad,
Yeah. And I feel like motherhood is just such a mind bender, where you look at, like, in some ways it just goes so fast, and in other ways it feels like this day is never going to end. And when you, like, I think those parts of us are always like in disagreement with ourselves of like, it's going too fast. Also, this day won't end, but like, I want to cherish these moments. I want my kids to adore me still when they're like 25, but also I really want to strangle you right now. Like when you have all those pieces of you that are arguing, to know that like it is hard. It really, this is a whole thing that we didn't understand before we got into it. And it's okay to feel like conflicting things at the same time. It's okay to be like, I love my baby, and I also really don't want to look at it right now. Like, I just want to sleep and I just want to take care of myself. Like, you can be in both places at once, and that's okay. Like, that's a normal human emotion, is that you can be struggling and still love your kids. You can think it's hard and still be like so glad that you have them. Like, it doesn't have to be one or the other.
Right.
So
yeah, no, I love that you said that, because I do feel like we feel conflicted, like if we do not love our children 100% of the time. So anyways, well, thank you so much for coming on. Why don't you let all of our mamas know how they can connect with you, and please share about your podcast.
yeah, I mean, I would love to meet every single mom who's listening today. Like, come say hi. I have a podcast also called Motherhood in ADHD, where we're coming up on our 5th anniversary this month is 5 years. So you can learn a lot more about like what ADHD looks like in women, how is it different as a mom, like strategies and all to support you. And then come hang out in Successful Mama meetups. Like, it's such a light-giving community to like have people that get you. And then if you are having one of those days where you're like, I am absolutely losing my mind and I can't anymore, I've got a free video on my website that's like 10 ways to like hold it together when you're losing it. I call her Medusa Mom. When Medusa Mom shows up and she's like, the snakes are hissing and she's yelling at everybody, or like if you're the one who like, if you disassociate and like you're just scrolling your phone all night and ignoring everybody, like when you're in those places where you're very overwhelmed, this is like 10 ways to calm down and like center in and be present in the moment so that you can show up as the mom that you want to. And that's patriciasung.com/calm. So I am just really thankful that you invited me here, because I think this period of time where you are breastfeeding, giving so much of yourself to your family, like literally physically giving of yourself, it's so much. And we don't talk enough about how hard it is, and the postpartum anxiety and the postpartum depression, and knowing that like there's a space here where moms can feel safe. Like, that's really beautiful. So thank you for having me, because I will say, like, this is one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, was that like year after my oldest son was born. And I don't want other moms to struggle for as long as I did. Like, reach out, please ask for help. You are not the only one who's struggling. You're not a bad mom. Please reach out.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I know you're going to help so many mamas. Please go join her community, especially if you feel like you're past the breastfeeding part. Even if not, you can still join, right? But we just want the best for you. We want you to be set up for success and have as much support as you can. So thanks so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening in. If you loved this episode, it would mean so much if you would share it with another mama or post on social media and tag me. I want to personally thank you for wanting to help other mamas. You got this. I'm rooting for your breastfeeding journey.